All right, listeners, get ready. We're diving deep into the Indian job market today.
Sounds exciting.
It is. We've got this new report, hot off the press, from the National Statistical Office of India.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, it's all about formal sector employment trends.
Lots of data in there.
Tons. It covers a pretty long period, too, from September 2017 all the way August 2024.
Wow, so we can see the big picture.
Exactly. And the best part, it's not just based on surveys or estimates.
Oh.
Yeah, it uses actual subscriber data from 3 major programs.
Which ones?
The Employees Provident Fund, the Employees got it, so it's kind of like a financial safety net for the future.
Exactly. Then we have the ESI, which focuses on healthcare.
So that's for medical coverage.
Yeah, and it covers companies with 10 or more employees.
Okay, so slightly smaller companies than the EPF.
That's right. And finally, we have the NPS, the National Pension Scheme.
Which is for retirement, right?
You got it. It's designed to help people save for their golden years.
So we've got savings, healthcare, and retirement.
And we're going to use all three to understand the Indian job market.
It's like having 3 different perspectives on the same thing.
Precisely. But here's a catch.
What's that?
We can't just add up all the numbers from each scheme.
Because there's overlap.
Exactly. Some people might be enrolled in 2 or even all 3 programs.
Oh, right. So we need to be careful not to count the same person multiple times.
Exactly.
All right. So with that in mind, let's start with the big picture from the EPF data.
Okay, great. What do you want to...
Well, it covers a long period, right? From 2017 to 2024. So what's the overall trend we see in the EPF?
Well, if you look at the number of new EPF subscribers over time, there's a general upward trend.
So that means more jobs are being created.
That's right. More people are joining the formal workforce.
That's good news for the economy.
It is. It shows growth and opportunity.
But I'm guessing it wasn't all smooth sailing, was it?
Well, there's a noticeable dip in new subscribers between April 2020 and March 2021.
The pandemic?
Exactly. Like many economies, India's job market took a hit during that time.
Right, it was a global disruptor.
Absolutely.
But the report goes to August 2024, so I'm guessing things bounced back.
They did. And what's impressive is how quickly the numbers rebounded after that initial dip.
So the job market showed resilience.
Absolutely. It took a hit, but it recovered.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Okay, so we see an overall upward trend with a pandemic-shaped dip in the middle.
Yes.
What other interesting details jump out from this long-term EPF view?
Well, one thing that stands out is the increase in female subscribers.
Really? Across all age groups?
Yeah. Yes, across all age groups.
So more women are entering the formal workforce.
That's right. It's a positive sign for gender inclusivity in India's job market.
That's fantastic to hear. Now, this might sound a little nerdy, but I'm always intrigued by the exited members who rejoined category.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one.
It's like a revolving door of employment. What's the story there?
Well, it tells us about the dynamics of the job market.
In what way?
Exited members are those who left their jobs and stopped contributing to the EPF.
Okay.
And rejoined means they came back into the system.
So they left and then came back.
Exactly.
Why would they do that?
There are various reasons, some positive, some maybe not so much.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Well, someone might take a break to care for family or pursue higher education.
Okay, so they're out for personal reasons.
Right. And then they might decide to return to formal employment later on.
Bringing new skills and experience with them.
Exactly. On the other hand, someone might lose their job due to economic reasons.
Like layoffs during a downturn.
Yes, and then they might struggle to find a new position right away.
Right, so it could be a sign of hardship too.
It's a complex category with lots of potential interpretations.
It definitely adds another layer to the data. What about age? Does the report break it down by age group?
It does, and there's a clear pattern.
What is it?
The 22-25 age group consistently has the highest number of new EPF subscribers.
So that's young people entering the workforce.
Most likely, yes. Fresh graduates eager to start their careers.
Makes sense. It's like a wave of new talent.
Exactly. India has a large young population, and this is reflected in the data.
It's the demographic dividend in action.
Absolutely.
And while we're talking demographics, I noticed something interesting in the gender categories.
Oh.
Yeah, there are others and not available categories for gender.
Right.
It makes me wonder how the reporting on gender has evolved over time.
That's a good point. It seems data collection has become more nuanced.
You think so?
Yeah, initially it might have been a simple binary of male and female,
Right, a traditional view.
but now there's a greater awareness of gender diversity.
So the data is trying to reflect that.
Exactly. It's becoming more inclusive and comprehensive.
That's a positive development.
Oh,
Okay, so we've got a sense of the long-term trends in EPF.
we do.
But now I want to get into the nitty-gritty, the recent data.
Sounds good.
What does the EPF tell us about the current state of the job market month by month?
All right, let's take a look at the data from April 2024 to August 2024
Okay, let's zoom in.
and see what it reveals about the latest employment trends.
Right, I'm ready.
Great.
All right, so we've talked about the EPF, but what about the ESI? How does that data compare?
Well, remember the ESI focuses on healthcare for companies with 10 or more employees, right?
Yeah, so it's looking at slightly smaller companies.
Exactly. And when we compare the ESI trends to the EPF, there are some interesting differences.
Like what?
Well, for one, the pandemic's impact on ESI subscriber numbers wasn't as dramatic.
Really? So the numbers didn't drop as much?
Not as much, no. It could be because the ESI covers a wider range of businesses.
Ah, including those smaller ones that might have been more resilient during the pandemic.
Exactly. Smaller companies can be quicker to adapt to change.
Right, they can be more nimble.
So the ESI data might reflect that flexibility.
It shows how different parts of the economy can react differently to big events.
Exactly. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Okay, and then there's this existing employees category in the ESI data. What's that all about?
Oh, that's a good one. It tells us how many people were already enrolled in the scheme and continued paying contributions.
So it's not just about new jobs, but also about keeping existing jobs,
Right, precisely. It's about stability in the workforce.
which is just as important as creating new jobs.
Absolutely. If existing employee numbers stay strong, it means the formal sector is holding its ground.
Got it. It's a sign of a healthy economy. Okay, before we move on to the NPS, any surprises in the ESI data when it comes to age and gender?
Well, overall, the patterns are similar to the EPF.
So still mostly younger folks entering the workforce.
Yes, especially those in their early 20s. And we also see that increase in women participating over the years.
Okay, so the same trend of a more diverse workforce we talked about with the EPF.
Exactly. But there is one small difference.
What's that?
The proportion of women in the ESI seems to be slightly lower than in the EPF.
Interesting. Any ideas why that might be?
Well, it could be related to the types of industries covered by the ESI.
Okay, like what?
It focuses on companies with 10 or more employees, which might include more sectors where women are traditionally underrepresented.
Ah, like manufacturing or construction, maybe?
Exactly. So it's not just about overall participation, but also where those jobs are concentrated.
So it's important to look deeper into those sector-specific trends.
Absolutely. It gives us a more nuanced understanding. But for now, I think we should switch gears and look at the NPS data.
Retirement savings. I'm curious about this one, especially since it's voluntary, unlike the EPF and ESI.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So how do we connect the NPS to employment?
That's what I was wondering. It's not directly tied to someone's current job, is it?
You're right. It's not mandatory like the others. But remember, the report specifically looks at NPS subscribers in the government and corporate sectors.
Right, not just anyone who's enrolled.
Exactly. It's a more targeted view. And what we see is steady growth in new NPS subscribers, especially in the corporate sector.
So more people are thinking about their retirement.
It seems so. It shows a growing awareness of financial planning for the future.
Yeah, people are realizing they need to plan for those golden years.
And it makes sense given trends like people living longer.
Right, you can't just rely on the old ways of thinking about retirement anymore.
Exactly. People need to be proactive. Speaking of which, the age breakdown in NPS is interesting compared to the other two schemes.
Oh, yeah. What's different?
Well, remember how the younger age groups dominated the EPF and ESI?
Yeah, because those are tied to current employment.
Right. Well, in NPS, we actually see a higher proportion of subscribers in the older age groups.
So the 29 to 35 and over 35 groups.
Exactly. It's almost the opposite pattern.
Well, I guess younger folks are more worried about paying rent than saving for retirement.
Uh-huh, probably. They're focused on building their careers right now.
Makes sense. But what about those older groups? Why the surge in NPS participation for them?
Well, it could be because retirement planning becomes more of a priority as you get closer to that stage of life.
You start thinking about it more seriously.
Exactly. You have more resources, a clear picture of your needs, and maybe a bit more urgency.
Right, you can't put it off forever.
Plus, don't forget the NPS is relatively new compared to the EPF.
Oh, right. It was introduced much later.
So some of those older folks might be playing catch-up since they didn't have access to NPS earlier in their careers.
Interesting. So they're making up for lost time.
Exactly. And as awareness of the NPS grows, we might see younger people starting their retirement planning earlier too.
It'll be interesting to see how that age distribution shifts over time.
Absolutely. It all ties back to how policy and awareness can influence individual choices. But hold on, we're not done yet. We still need to take a closer look at those month-by-month changes in the NPS data.
All right, bring on the monthly roller coaster. I'm ready to see what those numbers reveal. Okay, so we've seen the big picture trends in EPF and ESI, and now we're diving into the monthly NPS data.
Right. Let's get granular.
I have a feeling these month-to-month numbers might have some hidden stories.
You're right, they often do.
Like looking for clues, trying to understand what's driving those little ups and downs.
Exactly. What catches your eye when you look at the numbers?
Well, one thing that jumps out is that spike in July 2024.
In July.
Yeah, there's a noticeable jump in new NPS subscribers across all the age groups.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
It's like everyone suddenly decided to start saving for retirement.
It could be a reaction to something specific, like a change in government policy.
You mean like new incentives for retirement savings?
Exactly. Or maybe a big promotional campaign that got people's attention.
It's like a sale at the store. Suddenly everyone wants in.
Exactly. Those external factors can definitely influence behavior.
And what about dips? Any of those worth noting?
Well, there's a slight dip in June 2024, mainly in the non-government sector.
Not a huge drop, but still noticeable.
Right. It could be a sign of economic uncertainty during that period.
So when people are worried about the economy, they might hold back on long-term savings.
It's possible, yes.
It's like the NPS numbers are reflecting people's confidence in the future.
In a way, yes. Those monthly fluctuations can tell us a lot about the psychology of financial decision-making.
It's amazing how these numbers can paint such a detailed picture.
It really is. And this report gives us so much to work with, all those different breakdowns by scheme, age, gender, even month.
It's a treasure trove of data, but it's not just about the numbers themselves, right?
Oh, of course not. It's about what they tell us about the bigger picture.
About the Indian workforce, the economy, and the choices people are making.
Exactly. This report is like a starting point, a foundation for deeper understanding.
And it's not just for experts, right? Anyone can explore this data and learn something.
Absolutely. Researchers, policymakers, even just curious individuals.
It's a collaborative effort, a shared journey of discovery.
And the journey never really ends, does it?
No, because the job market is always evolving. New trends emerge, new challenges arise.
And that's what makes it so fascinating.
It's a constant learning process.
Exactly. We've focused on the formal sector in this deep dive, but let's not forget about the informal sector.
Right, that's a huge part of the Indian economy too.
So for everyone listening, what are your thoughts on that? How can we use data to understand the informal workforce better? What are the challenges and opportunities there?
Those are great questions to ponder. This deep dive has given us so much to think about, but it's just the beginning.
Well said. There's always more to learn.
So until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep asking questions.
And never stop being curious.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the heart of the Indian job market. We hope you learned something new and feel inspired to keep diving deep.